Hey guys, welcome to Y&R Daily Update YouTube channel. Today's topics: The Young and the Restless. Spoilers, Tuesday, July 29, 2025. The chaos in Nice was supposed to end on foreign soil. The gunfire, the blood, the secrets that unraveled like silk soaked in gasoline. But the wounds it left behind didn't stay in France. They returned to Genoa City inside the chests of the people who tried to outrun them quietly, violently, endlessly. And as one storm died down, another took shape. This one slower, more personal, but no less destructive. At its center stood a kiss. A kiss long overdue. A kiss that threatened to collapse decades of damage and longing. A kiss between Sharon and Nick. They weren't supposed to feel it anymore. They had said goodbye to that chapter, to those long ago promises and shared ghosts. They had buried their history behind children and heartbreak, behind marriages and funerals and all the things that make old lovers cautious. But in the hush of grief and survival, when the wreckage of Nice still hummed in the back of their minds, Nick leaned forward and kissed her. Not out of obligation, not out of confusion, but because she was his anchor. And maybe for one fleeting second, he still loved her. Sharon hadn't expected it, not that moment, but somewhere in her soul, she had always known it might return. Because with Nick, love was never gone. It simply lay dormant, waiting for a spark. And the fire in France had provided exactly that. But as their lips parted and reality reasserted itself, neither knew what to say. The silence between them wasn't cold. It was burning with questions. Was this a new beginning? Or the final goodbye? Neither had dared to speak. By Monday, the aftermath would begin. Nick, ever the impulsive protector, would try to make sense of what he'd done. He'd second-guessed the moment, wondering if it was fair to Sharon, to himself, to the version of their love that had been carefully preserved in the past, like a relic. Sharon, on the other hand, would say nothing at first, not because she didn't care, but because she cared too much. She knew that with Nick, emotion always arrived before logic. And this time, logic was something neither of them could ignore. Meanwhile, elsewhere in Genoa City, the walls around Kane Ashby were finally collapsing. The man who once played at being Dumas now faced the consequences of a life lived in manipulation and ego. Victor Newman had returned from Nice sharper than ever, his eyes colder, his patience gone. He summoned Kane to Newman Towers, not to negotiate, but to deliver a message, a verdict, a reckoning. Victor's words were quiet, but they landed like hammers. You've lost. You were never in control. You mistook chaos for strength. And now everything you built is dust. Kane didn't take it well. The man who once curated a persona of composure and quiet menace lost every shred of it in that moment. He rose from his seat, fists clenched, and in a surge of rage, swept everything from Victor's desk of papers, a crystal decanter, a framed photograph of the Newman family, all of it crashing to the floor. He was done pretending, done playing diplomat. He was no longer Damas. He was a man undone, stripped of the mask, left only with the rot underneath. But Victor didn't flinch. He simply watched unmoved as Kane's performance imploded in front of him. And when Kane stormed out, Victor only had one thing to say to the silent room: he'll destroy himself. All I had to do was light the match. And it was true. Kane didn't need enemies anymore. He was his own undoing. What stung more than Victor's condemnation, however, was Lily's silence. She had returned from Nice hollowed out by Chance's death and Carter's betrayal. She had hoped for accountability, perhaps even honesty, but all she got was excuses. Even now, with Damien dead and her cousin gone forever, Kane refused to accept the part he had played, and that broke something in her. Whatever flicker of hope she had for him, for redemption, for forgiveness, it died, and with it, so did his last real connection to anything resembling love. Phyllis, still bizarrely loyal to him, tried to intervene. She defended him, saying he was spiraling under pressure, that he wasn't the monster everyone claimed. But even her voice trembled now, as if she, too, had begun to doubt the man she once insisted could be saved. And Kane, for all his arrogance, saw it. The love was fading. He had pushed too far, too fast, and now all that remained was a scorched earth. Elsewhere in the Newman estate, grief took another form. Victor and Nikki sat quietly in their private suite, two titans of industry undone, not by business, but by family. They had both tried so hard to shield Victoria from darkness, to guide her toward happiness after Ashland's lies and Cole's death. But Claire Newman, the daughter she didn't know she had, the child Victoria once believed lost forever, had re-entered their lives, not as a blessing, but as a wound. And neither Victor nor Nikki knew how to stop the bleeding. Claire was not the wide-eyed innocent they had imagined. She was guarded, scarred by her upbringing, suspicious of the family that now surrounded her. And Victoria, though desperate to bond, struggled with the emotional distance. Every conversation between them felt like a negotiation. Every attempt at connection felt like reaching across a chasm neither of them could name. Victor, watching it all unfold, felt helpless. For all his influence and wealth, he couldn't fix this. He couldn't buy trust. He couldn't erase the past. Nikki, ever the emotional compass, tried to hold her daughter together, but even she felt herself slipping. The family, once united through power, was now fragmented by pain. And so the Newmans, like the Abbotts, like the Chancellors, like the Ashbys, found themselves at another breaking point. Chance was dead. Sharon and Nick were uncertain. Kane was unraveling. Victoria was lost. And Genoa City stood still, holding its breath for whatever came next. Because something always comes next. In The Young and the Restless, there are no endings, only transformations. One kiss can change a destiny. One betrayal can rewrite an empire. One death can shift the gravitational center of the entire show. And as the shadows deepen and the alliances fracture, one thing becomes clear. This isn't the end of a chapter. It's the beginning of a reckoning. Would you like the next segment to continue with Nick and Sharon questioning their future? Or perhaps, a twist where Victor investigates Claire's background more deeply? I can also explore a new storyline where Kane is arrested or fakes his own death to escape Victor's wrath. Let me know where you'd like the story to go next. The moment the mobile service came back on across the French countryside, a floodgate opened. And it wasn't just messages and voicemails. It was pain. It was the world catching up with horror. It was truth arriving too late. As reception bars returned to glowing screens in the halls of Citizen Kane Ashby's secluded estate, so, too did the avalanche of calls, alerts, and digital reminders that life back in Genoa City hadn't paused. It had surged forward with its own tragedies while the chaos in Nice played out. For Nikki and Victor Newman, the news came slowly, then all at once. The moment Victor's phone lit up, and he saw the flurry of missed calls and texts from the Newman staff back home, he felt it deep in his chest, a premonition that something was terribly wrong. Nikki watched him go still, watched the sharp inhale as he read the subject line of the email. Then came the words she would never forget. Cole's gone. There had been no chance to say goodbye. While they were in Nice fighting their own battle to protect their legacy from Kane's unraveling chaos, Cole Howard had slipped away. Complications, sudden, unavoidable. His death hit Nikki like a collapsing wall. Victoria's father, her first love, a part of their family history, long tangled in secrets, but always rooted in deep affection. And now he was gone, without closure, without peace. Victor had always been complicated when it came to Cole. There was distance, resentment, even suspicion at times. But there was also respect. And for Victoria's sake, for the sake of everything they had tried to hold on to as a family, his death left Victor feeling something he rarely experienced: regret. At the same time, Kyle Abbott stood on the balcony of his rented suite, staring out at the Vineyard Hills with a phone pressed to his ear. The voicemail from Claire Newman played quietly. Her voice soft, her words hesitant, but direct. She had heard about Cole. She needed to talk. She was trying to process it, but she didn't know how. Kyle felt the pang of guilt settle deep in his stomach, not just for Claire, but for the game he'd been playing. He had kept secrets. He had watched her struggle, knowing more than he let on. And now, with the truth staring him in the face, Kyle didn't know what he could say to her that wouldn't feel like another betrayal. The Newman siblings were also shifting beneath the weight of their shared loss. Victoria and Adam, so often rivals, so often the living embodiment of their father's contradictions, found a rare moment of understanding. It wasn't a grand truce, but it was real. As news of Cole's death rippled through their family, they sat in silence together for a long time. No arguments, no pride, just pain, just memory. And for the first time in years, they didn't look at each other as threats. They looked at each other as survivors of the same storm. Back in Genoa City, Tessa Porter took refuge in what mattered most: her daughter. She cradled Arya in her arms, her eyes glassy from lack of sleep and emotional fatigue. Alongside Daniel Romalotti, she spent precious hours walking through the park, touching grass, watching the child giggle at birds and clouds, desperately trying to shield her from the sadness bleeding in. Alongside Daniel Romalotti, she spent precious hours walking through the park, touching grass, watching the child giggle at birds and clouds, desperately trying to shield her from the sadness bleeding into every corner of town. Because the moment mobile service returned to the Chancellor grounds and across the hospital wings, one devastating name began spreading. Chancellor is dead. He died in France on duty protecting Lily Winter's shot. His heart stopped before the helicopter arrived, and just like that, the legacy of the Chancellors lost its last heir. Lily, emotionally crushed but functioning on instinct, had made the call to Nate. She had rehearsed the words a dozen times, but nothing made them easier. Her voice cracked low and steady. He's gone, Nate. Damien's gone. She hadn't even mentioned Chance yet. Not yet. Nate went cold. His heart stopped. Damien, the half-brother he never truly got to know. The brother he had always thought there would be time to reconnect with, gone. He didn't cry. Not yet. Not in that moment. His brain tried to process it clinically. He asked questions about the bullet, the confrontation, the timeline, but then Lily's voice wavered again. I haven't told Amy yet. You have to tell her, Nate. I can't do it. And in that moment, the weight of it all hit him. Nate was the one who had to destroy her. Amy Lewis had been fighting for her life long before France. Her cancer had brought her to the edge of mortality, and by some miracle, she had found an experimental trial that seemed to work. In recent weeks, she had even begun walking more, smiling, laughing, believing, but her true miracle hadn't been medical. It had been Damien, her son. After years of believing she had failed him, she had found him again. And now Nate was going to take that away. He found her on the terrace of the treatment facility, wrapped in a blanket, reading. She looked peaceful. So rare, so vulnerable. And when she saw Nate, she smiled like someone expecting good news. But Nate couldn't smile back. He sat beside her, took her hand. He told her slowly, gently, carefully. He said there had been an incident in France. He said Damien had gotten involved. He said he didn't make it. Amy didn't scream. She didn't collapse. She just stared at him for a long time. And then she whispered, "No, not again." Tears came later, deep sobs that shook her thin frame. Nate tried to hold her, but she pulled away. "I only had him for a moment," she said. "And now he's gone." Her body rocked with pain that had nothing to do with cancer. It was the agony of a mother being punished twice. And though her doctors would later monitor her vitals and say she was stable, Nate knew better. He knew grief could kill faster than disease. The days that followed were heavy with silence. In the Chancellor mansion, Jill sat alone in the study, a glass of bourbon untouched on the table. She had lost everything. Catherine, Philip, Chance, Damien. The family name now existed only in tombstones and memories. She refused visitors. She refused sympathy. She just stared at the wall, thinking of the last time Chance had smiled. Victor, back at Newman Tower, tried to keep busy. He scheduled meetings, reorganized departments, sent messages. But the sharpness in his tone betrayed the hollowness beneath it. Nikki sat across from him in every boardroom. Her eyes never quite focused, her voice never quite steady. Victoria wandered the halls, speaking little. Claire remained distant. The family, once a fortress, now felt like a haunted house. And across town, Sharon and Nick still hadn't spoken about the kiss. That one brief flicker of passion now hung between them like a secret no one wanted to name. Because grief changes people. And sometimes, the deepest confusion comes not from loss, but from the longing it resurrects. As the week ended, one thing was certain. Genoa City had changed. 2 sons were dead. One family was crumbling. And a town that prided itself on endurance was now learning what it meant to break. But in The Young and the Restless, nothing stays buried forever. Not grief, not guilt, not love, and certainly not the dead. Would you like the next section to explore Amy's psychological decline? A possible twist revealing Damien's survival? Or perhaps a deeper focus on Claire and Victoria's fragile relationship? Let me know how you'd like to continue. The latest episode of The Young and the Restless plunges Genoa City into a deep emotional turmoil following the tragic events in Nice. The chaos that erupted abroad has left indelible scars on the characters, whose lives are now unraveling in the aftermath. Central to the episode is a poignant and unexpected kiss between Sharon and Nick, reigniting long-buried feelings and casting uncertainty over their futures. Meanwhile, Kane Ashby's facade crumbles under Victor Newman's unrelenting judgment, signaling the end of Kane's manipulative reign. The Newman family faces heartbreak as they grapple with the arrival of Claire Newman, a guarded and damaged girl whose presence stirs unresolved tensions. The death of Cole Howard sends shockwaves through the Newman and Abbott families, prompting moments of rare unity amid grief. The Chancellor family suffers a devastating blow with the death of Chance Chancellor, who died heroically in France, intensifying the emotional strain on loved ones like Lily Winters, Nate Hastings, and Amy Lewis. As the episode closes, the families of Genoa City are fractured, haunted by loss, betrayal, and uncertain futures. The intricate web of grief, love, and power sets the stage for a reckoning that promises to redefine alliances and relationships within the city. Highlights: Sharon and Nick share a long overdue, emotionally charged kiss, stirring old feelings amid grief. Victor Newman confronts Kane Ashby, delivering a brutal verdict on his downfall. Claire Newman's return complicates the Newman family dynamics with emotional distance and mistrust. The death of Cole Howard shocks the Newman and Abbott families, prompting rare moments of solidarity. Chancellor's heroic death devastates the Chancellor family, deepening the emotional crisis. Amy Lewis faces unbearable grief after losing her son Damien, battling both cancer and heartbreak. Genoa City stands at a breaking point, with key families fractured and uncertain about the future. Key insights: the kiss as a catalyst for emotional reckoning. The kiss shared by Sharon and Nick is not just a moment of passion but a symbol of unresolved emotions and complex histories. It challenges their current realities and forces both characters to confront whether their past love can survive present circumstances. This moment highlights how grief and trauma can reignite dormant feelings, complicating decisions grounded in logic. The uncertainty following the kiss underscores the tension between desire and responsibility, a recurring theme in The Young and the Restless. Victor Newman's role as the arbiter of justice and chaos. Victor's confrontation with Kane Ashby reveals his evolving role from a powerful businessman to a moral reckoner within Genoa City. His calm but firm dismissal of Kane's control reflects a deeper understanding of power's fragility when built on deception. Victor's belief that Kane will self-destruct without external interference illustrates the destructive nature of unchecked ego and manipulation. This dynamic also sets a precedent for Victor's increasingly decisive actions in protecting his family legacy. Claire Newman's return as a disruptive force. Claire's re-entry into the Newman family brings unresolved pain and distrust, disrupting what little stability remained. Her guarded demeanor and emotional distance highlight the long-lasting impact of trauma and neglect. Claire's struggle to connect with Victoria emphasizes the complexities of blended families and the challenges of healing fractured relationships. This storyline promises to explore themes of forgiveness, acceptance, and the difficulty of rebuilding trust after abandonment. The ripple effect of Cole Howard's death. Cole's sudden passing serves as a stark reminder of life's fragility and the unpredictable consequences of the recent turmoil. His death not only affects his immediate family but also acts as a catalyst for reconciliation among the Newman siblings. Victoria and Adam. Their shared grief momentarily dissolves their rivalry, suggesting that loss can foster empathy and understanding, even among adversaries. This insight reveals the show's nuanced approach to portraying grief as a unifying, albeit painful, force. The Chancellor family's shattered legacy. Chancellor's death marks a devastating end to the family's legacy, symbolizing the collapse of hope and continuity. The emotional toll on Lily Winters, Nate Hastings, Amy Lewis, and Jill Abbott reflects the multifaceted nature of grief, encompassing loss, guilt, and the struggle for resilience. Amy's psychological decline after losing Damien, compounded by her battle with cancer, adds a poignant layer to the storyline that explores how grief can exacerbate existing vulnerabilities. The Chancellor family's plight exemplifies the human cost of violence and betrayal, the fragility and resilience of family bonds. Across the episode, family units are portrayed as both fragile and resilient. The Newmans, Abbotts, Chancellors, and Ashbys all face internal fractures, yet display moments of connection and support. The rare moment of silence and shared pain between Victoria and Adam Newman symbolizes the potential for healing through vulnerability. However, the pervasive sense of loss and mistrust also warns that reconciliation requires more than grief. It demands accountability and time. This duality reflects the complex emotional landscapes the characters navigate. Genoa City, as a microcosm of endurance and transformation, the city itself emerges as a character, embodying the tension between endurance and inevitable change. The phrase "there are no endings, only transformations" encapsulates the ongoing cycles of loss, love, betrayal, and renewal that define the show's narrative arc. Genoa City's collective holding of breath reflects the suspense and anticipation of what will come next, emphasizing the show's core theme that life's darkest moments often precede profound change. This insight invites viewers to consider how personal and communal tragedies intertwine to reshape identities and destinies. In conclusion, this episode of The Young and the Restless artfully weaves together themes of grief, love, betrayal, and power, setting the stage for a dramatic reckoning. The characters' emotional journeys reveal the complexity of human relationships under pressure and the enduring hope for redemption and renewal amidst chaos. As Genoa City faces its darkest hour, the narrative promises to explore the transformative power of loss and the possibility of new beginnings.